listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Ooh, is that a red rectangle I see? We are officially recording.
Hey, hello, everybody. We are officially recording. Welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. We're excited to have you with us again. I am not only here with myself, but I'm also here with Mrs. Jamie Wonko. How are we doing, Miss Wonko?
What up?
What up?
You know, we're doing okay. Our toes are a little bit chilly, a little frozen toes.
Yeah. Hey, wintertime.
Hey, winter. I had a meeting yesterday that started with, someone said, hi, how are you? The other person said, I'm really tired of people complaining about how cold it is. It's January in New Jersey. What do you expect?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess I can't say it's really cold in here.
Yes.
But I get it. It also sometimes does hit a little differently depending on, the day or the time, the lack of sun. And it can be, it can be bone chilling, as they say.
Yeah.
Right. I'm pretty chilly right now, I have to say.
Instead of dry January, I'm doing Y January, which is where I just yell out, run outside and just yell Y up at the sky.
It was a beautiful, warm. No, it was freezing today. It was a high of 33 degrees. And it was, the sun was glorious, but it was cold.
Yeah, I'm just not I'm not a fan of, again, my favorite part of winter is when it's over. We've talked about this already.
Do you think you'll retire to a warmer climate?
I don't think so. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. I would rather. Okay.
I could see you strolling around playing shuffleboard, getting in a little golf cart, and
first of all, it's going to be pickleball. Okay.
I'm just saying, and
yes,
shuffleboard, but yeah,
and shuffleboard.
Yeah.
I'll be shuffling that board all the time. Yeah. So
sitting at an outdoor chess table. I feel like there's all kinds of things.
I could be
sitting afternoon
at
cards, right?
Maybe a little espresso with my pinky up. Okay.
Well, why not? I see all of that sounds.
It does
perfect to me.
It does.
It sounds perfect to me.
Again, I have two options right now. I either want to I either want to move to Florence and eat my way through Italy and just live there and eat prosciutto and sandwiches, or I want to sell all my belongings and be a Uber/Lyft driver and live in Hawaii. So, but probably not.
Okay. Probably not. How about I have to say that the kids in school were really moved, many of them, and we don't have we have a lot of students that are either followers of Islam or are Hindu. We have some that are Sikh, but the kids were really moved about the pilgrimage, or how many people are making a pilgrimage to the Basilica right now, and how it's only open once every 25 years.
Yes, the Jubilee year.
Yes. And they were I was a little bit, I have to say, I appreciated it. I thought it was really terrific, their reactions to that, and how marvelous that could be. And then of course we got into a really cool conversation about all of the other pilgrimages. There's one that's happening in India right now, where the water is at its highest, most holy point. These two rivers converge, and and so there was really good, a lot of great connections happening with that. But a lot of them were like, wow, I wish I could do that. And I was like, oh man, me too.
I wish that, because we went to Europe 2 years ago, and I got a chance to go to the Vatican and got a little tour. We had a tour guide with us who was a historical anthropologist, and she was like the female Indiana Jones, and she was just brilliant and wonderful, and just engaging, and was really knowledgeable on everything. But just walking into St. Peter's Basilica, right? And going in there and walking around, and her showing you all these different things that are carved out of solid marble, and you're like, that's not carved out of marble. They're like, yeah, no, it's out of a solid piece of marble. And thinking about the craftsmanship that went into it, but just the sheer thing that really you look up and it is stories high. and you were like in the bottom of this, and you were just looking up at the ceiling, and it's all mosaics. It's all tile mosaics, little pieces of tile on the ceiling that make out these art pieces. And it's like, how on God's green earth did somebody get up there and do that, just to like build that and put it together and have the vision for it? It really is like, even if you're not Catholic, to go and see some of these things. Like there's a in New Jersey, there's a is it a Hindu temple that's in like
Yeah. Yes.
Robbinsville? Like I want to
Yes.
go. Like I
Yes.
totally want to go. I want to
Same.
go. I want to
Field trip.
yeah, I want to go down there. I want to see it because I hear like it's
And the
just
kids say, I love like children, because they're just like, there's just certain like universal truths, from all children. But many of my students that have gone, they're like, oh, it's pretty good snacks there.
it's kids. You gotta love it.
And it's like something that, especially that Drew and I say to each other, like, feeling a little snacky right now. Are you snacky? And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm a little snacky. So I just like, anytime someone's like, oh, there's pretty good snacks there, I think it's just such a great,
Yeah.
but it really looks stunning. Yeah.
By the way, Vatican, not good snacks.
Oh,
No.
darn it.
But no, it really, really, like if you get the opportunity, and I actually talk about this with my students when we would talk about like when I taught world history, like I actually encourage the opportunity for kids to like go to a religious service of a religion
Yes,
not of
that's
their
not
own,
theirs. Yeah.
to experience like, because even if you don't know the language
Yeah.
and they're speaking in a different language, you can still get a sense of like belonging and togetherness. And like one of the things that I teach when I would teach about world history was like, okay, first of all, we would not have the societies we have today without the world religions. And I am not an overly religious person, but like expanding, exploring, conquering, like it's all due to religion. Okay.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, like if you took all religion and stripped away the teachings and the books and the buildings and the paintings and all that stuff and took it away, it was do these things, be a good person. Is literally that's the ultimate underlying tone of everything.
Right.
Okay. And they also sometimes when you take a moment just to list, like, okay, you list the things that you're supposed to do for other people, and then Catholics, you list the things you're supposed to do for other people, and Muslims, you list the things you're supposed to do for other people, and then compare them, and they're like, wait, well, we're all doing the same things. I'm like, yeah, because
there's a lot more similarities than
there
differences.
is a lot more similarities and differences, which is something that we
Absolutely.
should remember when we talk about these different groups.
Yeah.
We hear about things in the news, like it's important to remember that there are a lot more similarities than there are differences.
It's true.
Anyway,
Which is something I love about teaching world history is how much
Yeah.
that comes up and how many kids can see that for the first time. Last
Yeah.
week we had the funeral of Jimmy Carter,
Yes.
and so I was live streaming that for a couple of hours. We had it sort of playing in the background. We were doing some other things. The kids were working on some projects and things like that. But and it was like what you said. There were many kids, many students that I had that had never seen, especially because we have like the ViewSonic boards and it's just like so big and the view is so grand, that they had never really seen the inside of a cathedral before.
Yeah.
And and so I guess it would probably be two part. Like one, some of them have not experienced a funeral like that because it's not their religion, and so it's not how it's done. And then some of them haven't experienced the funeral because they're not old enough to really like luckily haven't had to experience death just yet in their lives, which is, a point that someone else, had brought up to me. I was like, oh yeah, well that's, and good, good that they haven't had to, but, so it was really interesting to watch them watching and, like, wait, well, what are they doing? And why are they carrying that? And so those are the pallbearers. What did you say? There was like a lot of vocabulary involved in that also that they were, completely unfamiliar with, and yet so interested in. And so, so today I'm like, I'm Jerry Springering something on you now. Have you seen the Jerry Springer documentary yet?
I did. Can I tell you that I used to literally schedule my classes in college around Jerry Springer? I'm not going to lie. I absolutely did. 100%. I will literally 100%. I used to be like, I don't want to take a class that time because I want to be home. I want to watch Jerry Springer. This is before the days of TiVo. This is when you recorded stuff on VHS.
TiVo. I love that.
Okay.
It was before the DVR, before the TiVo, and now, before the ability to
everything's
tape.
streaming.
They
Yeah, it
gotta
was like,
tape it.
it's Trainwreck TV. It's funny, like
Wow.
I I would watch it just like I mean, actually, it was more of the shock and awe of it all. But then after a while, it got old for me. It didn't last forever. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
another fight, another fight, another fight. And I'm like,
All good
I'm out of here.
things must come to an
Yeah,
end.
but I did watch the documentary. That was actually on Netflix. That was very interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not really gonna Jerry Springer this
One,
one,
but
but
one, can I make one comment about the Jimmy
oh,
Carter
I
thing?
haven't yeah, of course, backtrack.
So yeah, just real quick. What was also interesting to me is when I went over um, I talked about Jimmy Carter, and I said, let's put our political um, beliefs aside, Democrat, Republican. Let's not talk about that stuff. Let's talk about the person, right? Because if you look at Jimmy Carter, the fact that he served his country and he served one term as president, when he was done, people believe he did more humanitarian work and more valuable work for humanity when he was out of office than when he was in office. And he did some amazing things while he was in office, even though he was, I say, only a one-term president.
Right.
But he also did a lot of these things not as in a way of like, look at me. Like he was doing these things for the
That's
good
right.
of humanity.
That's right.
Like, yes, he got a Nobel Peace Prize for it, but he wasn't like wearing that as a badge of honor on his chest. The guy still taught Sunday school. The guy still volunteered time in his 90s for Habitat for Humanity. Like
Yes.
he did amazing things. But when I also talked to my students about like what it was going to look like for his funeral, well, okay, they're going to have him be laid at his home, where they brought the casket to his home. They rang a bell 39 times because he was the 39th president. Then he went to the Presidential Center in Atlanta, where they had a private service. Then, where, by the way, when he went from his home to Atlanta, it was a 4-hour drive, and people are lining the streets and waving flags and holding up signs. And like, they were like, why are they doing it? I'm like, because they're showing respect for somebody that gave notoriety to their state, but was a beloved member of their state. Is someone like thank you for the things that you did. They didn't understand like, oh, and then they're going to bring his body to the Capitol building so people can come there, pay their final respects, and dignitaries and diplomats and people that came from African countries and other places because he did humanitarian work there to pay their final respects, to say thank you, President Carter, for the things that you did. Like, not everybody gets that kind of send off, but although it is a solemn occasion, it is still a triumphant occasion to like take a look at, like, and look at it face value. Like, wow, look at the power of one individual person. And also one thing I kind of neglected, but then I remembered, he was the first president on his inauguration day to get out of the car and like walk down the street and like wave at people and shake hands. And now they all do that. So that's that would like started with Jimmy Carter. So regardless of your political affiliations, I mean, it was good for the kids to kind of see like,
oh yeah,
the
and
power of one person, right?
his casket was on the same stand that Lincoln was on.
Yeah, that with the 5 stars on the side.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's cool.
Patriotism at its finest,
It's
really.
patriotism at its finest, yes. But even like, we're recording this beforehand, but like the inauguration is very soon. And it's gonna, like, I tell people, I send a weekly email to parents and I send like, hey, like regardless of our political affiliations, when a president is inaugurated, it is a momentous event.
Right.
So regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, watching it with your children, having them ask questions, I'm going to review it in class. Like,
same.
Whether you want me to or not, I'm going to. It's a civics thing.
That's
like
right.
We all need to talk about it and discuss it and talk about what the first 100 days are going to look like and stuff like that. Anyway.
Do you remember? I remember when Bill Clinton was inaugurated, and I was in the 8th grade. And I remember clearly it's like, tell me you like history without telling me you like history. But I remember like the teacher giving us an option of like getting our lunch and coming back to their classroom with it, like to give up your lunch to come and watch part of it. And I remember doing that and watching his inauguration. And I remember so clearly watching Chelsea Clinton like standing outside with her coat and her hair and being chilly and the whole thing. And like she was pretty much my same age.
Yeah.
And just thinking like, my goodness, that seems, it just all seemed surreal. And I think that was probably like a really, and same age as the kids that we teach, 12, 13, 14, where you really start to kind of form that position, opinion, belief system, in things that are greater than just even, or things outside your your own household. So yeah, that's a big event coming in
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to mention that really is an amazing thing. We're in living civics right now. So
Yes.
again, history
Yes.
nerd.
And I saw Carrie Underwood had put out a statement because she's going to perform at the inauguration, and
Yeah.
and I know that she had to kind of defend it a little bit, and I thought what I read was really great. Like, this is a time for everyone to come together and not, continue to try to tear apart.
Yeah.
It was
So and
yeah.
again, I'm not don't want to talk political affiliations and stuff like that, and who did what and what about presidents and stuff. But I will say this about our current our outgoing president Joe Biden. You can't love your country only when you win. It has to be when you lose as well, because that's what's going to keep things moving forward. It's predicated on the peaceful transfer of power.
Did he
Blah
say
blah.
that?
Well, yeah, I've heard him say it. I don't know if
Okay.
those words are attributed directly to him, but I've heard him say that multiple times.
Wow.
Um.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Anyway,
Wow. Well, our, I was saying Jerry Springer. I was
Jerry,
Jerry,
Jerry. Okay, here we go.
more because I was surprising you with what we were going to talk about today,
Oh yeah, I got it.
more than anything else. But so this is what I want to talk about. Give this a couple of minutes, but what I would like to discuss is, and I'm really hoping that we can get some of our listeners to weigh in on this topic.
Is cereal soup? No. Okay, go ahead.
Is cereal soup.
My students don't listen to this podcast, but if they did, they might get a laugh at that one. We were discussing it today. It was
Okay.
a thing. But never mind.
I say
Go
no,
ahead.
but yes. My short answer is no. But here it is. We're talking about New Jersey. We're talking about students. We're talking about the teacher shortage. And and also the difficulties that face teachers, and I've been having a personal difficulty, one that I had genuinely escaped for 2 solid years,
Okay.
which is students who just don't like you.
Oh.
So my question is, what do you do when somebody just doesn't like you? You're just not for them. And I have to say, I got a bit spoiled because whatever I was dishing out, they were buying, right? They were like ordering me up, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm having a difficult time right now with some of these things. Eye rolling, laughing. They're just making, when I tell you
Okay.
making fun of me,
Are they I do, and this is not accusatory. Are they laughing at you, or are they laughing and you think that they're laughing at you? Please don't take that the wrong way. But if you're like, yeah, they're totally laughing at me. Like, I get it.
Okay, both. I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
You know what I mean?
they are laughing, but
It's like when you see somebody in the cafeteria and like, and then they look over at you like, oh my God, they're talking about me, but they might not be. They might be like, oh, I want to make sure that person's not looking. Like, I don't know.
No, and let me say,
Okay.
I'm a girl, which is sometimes what I say in school. Like, I'm a girl, and I know,
Got
right?
it.
So it's not like, oh, maybe they're talking about somebody. It's like, no, they're not. And it's specifically like a few kids, right? So, what do you do? And this is a conversation that, so we actually interviewed, we have a good friend of the pod. We interviewed her at the end of last season. And she is in her retirement, her goodbye tour. And, this is the first time for her in, 25 years where she feels the children do not like me. And she is shooketh. Okay. Shocked, shooketh, shaken. I can't say that I have not experienced this. So the conversation has been, what do you do when there are kids that you've tried, different like tricks and you've done all the things that you know to do, and they just don't vibe with you, or they just don't want to stop, So just curious, like what maybe your experience has been with it. I've tried that, which usually what works for me, I have to say, is like I've tried you know, the quiet talking, the whispering, that, like right directly with them, like, hey, like let's, and instead of like, I was never a big fan of like in front of the whole room kind of thing. I don't think that works well, but, so I've been trying to use all of the things. I'm not sure, why I can't kind of break through. And and it's bothering me. It's really bothering me because I don't like it. I don't like that kind of like back and forth where like every single thing that I say is met with an eye roll or you know where I'm talking about like literature, and we're talking about reading, and we're talking about families, and we're talking about the past, and every single thing that I say is like the dumbest thing that they've ever heard. And so this has been a conversation that I've had, and of course um I just don't know. Do you have any experience with this?
I mean, no, everybody loves me. So there it is. There it is. I was waiting for it. I got her.
And I get it. Like I've had kids where it's like maybe we don't see eye to eye, but this is, what I'm talking. So all the teachers, we know. And it's funny because I brought this up in a meeting I had with a couple of guidance counselors and a couple of other like newer teachers. And one of them, like bless her heart, was like, oh, this is only my second year. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you don't even know they're doing it yet. Like there's this like sixth sense, I feel like, that you develop. And so she was kind of saying like, no, nobody. And I'm thinking like, I just don't know that you have enough experience to even know that they're doing it. And I don't know if I'm hyper like sensitive to certain situations. Like you said, like, are you sure that that's, what they're doing? And it's like, yeah, they're undermining me and they're trying to involve other kids in the action, almost as like a rallying, bullying.
Well,
like, I'm going to get more people on board and we're all going to hate her together.
Yeah. So I'm gonna mention some things that I know you already know, but I'm mentioning them also for our listeners too, right? I don't know the name of the actual study. That I remember talking about this in a class that I took, and it was a study. It was actually, you know what? No, that's incorrect. It was like a PBSIS planning.
Oh yeah.
Thing, right?
Okay.
And they talked about impulsivity in society, right? They did a study where they measured impulsivity, and it was like prison inmates were at the top of the list as the most impulsive members of society. Oddly enough, a subsection of like defense attorneys that are most impulsive. And then you have children ages 13 to 15. And that's for a variety of different reasons, right? They are hormonally imbalanced. They are figuring things out in their own bodies. Their frontal cortex is still developing. There are a number of things that are biologically happening to them that they yet cannot control. Okay? That's not to say like they can't control it at all, but they have difficulty controlling it. My number one inclination after trying to have a calm conversation with a young person is, at this point in my career, normally it's I'm talking to a guidance counselor and I'm saying I want a parent and I want them face to face and I want a meeting. Because I'm not saying I want to inconvenience someone, but I want you to hear from, not over the phone. I want you to hear from me face to face the effect that this is having on your child and other children's learning. And moving forward in the environment of my classroom, this will not be tolerated and she or he will be removed. And unfortunately, you get to a point where that has to happen because there are times where students are maybe placed in a classroom and that placement is not correct for whatever reason. There are also times, and I'm not specifically making comments in my current teaching or situation, but there are times where, this hasn't happened to me, but like, you send the kid to the office and they come back with a lollipop with a smirk on their face. Like, no. Okay. You need to feel supported. And I think a lot of times, like when moms and dads hear about how their children are acting in
The
front of
environment.
other
Yeah.
other people, that they are A, mortified, and B, will be partners in crime with you to help you correct those behaviors.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that may be
so the answer is because I was leaning towards, my next step now is to kind of, I've already sort of started gathering like with guidance, like, is this a me thing? Is this is this happening in other classes, or is it just like a personal conflict? Which, I'm always a firm believer in, like, you can't like everyone.
exactly.
And but I have said, you can show you can show respect wherever you go and whomever you're with, regardless of who they are, how old they are, the environment that you're in. I've even tried I'm a person. I know I'm a grown up, and I know that, I'm your teacher. However, like, I am a person too. I have skin and blood and bones, and things that would hurt your feelings hurt my feelings.
Yes.
And I am not without, I am hurt too. And, I would never speak to you or laugh at you or do anything purposefully to hurt your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that you would not do that to me.
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes later, it happens again. Usually that speech is like pretty impactful and usually goes like it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I am,
There's a lot of there's a lot of decisions that are out of your control. What are some other things that you could do? You could talk about a schedule change. You could talk
yes,
about, like, this is not the best learning environment for all of these children, and one
yes,
or two of them might need to switch into another class in
yes,
order to look. We're also talking about, it could be a matter of you have new kids coming into a building. Let's say that these are all, sixth grade students from different elementary schools that all come into the building. Now they're all being put together. They're all feeling each other out. They're all learning
right,
about each other. And, we don't know that, student A and student B shouldn't really be in the same environment together until they're in the same environment
it's true,
together.
it's true.
And it's not a matter of, like, we're also in January. We have another 6 months. We have another 2 marking periods. It's a transition period to be at the end of a marking period to say, like, hey, look, like, that there is a clique or environment here that might need to be
It's not
broken up,
working.
and it
Yeah,
might be a good idea to make
yeah,
the switch halfway through the year
yeah,
and allow these students a different perspective,
yeah,
because
it's true. I mean,
they're
22, we have 22 weeks more.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
22, 23. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, at what point is it, admitting defeat, or is it just, saying like, this really isn't the best environment for us together. Our
Yeah.
journey has now come to an end.
Yeah. The
Why
other
is that difficult though? I know I'm not the only teacher that has a difficult time with that, right? Because it looks like, or the narrative has been, oh, you couldn't do it. Like, oh, you couldn't make it work with them.
I
Oh, I know,
I've
but
had
you know what I'm saying. I'm
yeah,
just trying to make
yeah.
that point of, like, I know that I have tried to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, it's more, right? And it's not going the way that, for me, like, that it would normally go. And so but it still feels like a weakness, or having to
The other thing, and
admit.
I don't oh, I'm sorry, you froze and I spoke over you. Why don't you say that again? I'm sorry. Sorry, Mrs. Wonka. Why don't you say that again?
No, it's
Sorry.
okay. I'm sorry, I'm freezing. Um, Admitting defeat. Why does it feel like a weakness? Why does it feel like
Well,
admitting
there's
defeat?
a number of different strategies too. It might be, like, let's say I'm assuming it's a number of students that are all now getting into the whole, like, eye rolling, oh, let's all laugh together, blah blah blah. It's like, I don't deserve to feel this way in my classroom,
Right.
from however many it is, pulling the 4 of them aside, maybe talking to the guidance counselor or principal beforehand and saying, we're going to have a little, like, even saying, like, hey, look, I want to pull these 4 kids in, and I want to say, you know what? The 4 of you need to decide who's going to go to a different environment. Who wants to go to a different class? And they might all be like, oh, we're sorry. We don't want, and give them an opportunity to right the behavior. And then if they don't, then we're talking about escalating things. um, and putting some additional safeguards into place.
Right.
Um, and that might be like one kid might be like, I'll get out, I'll leave, I'll go to a different class. And that isn't necessarily the answer either, where they just become someone else's headache.
Right.
Um, and we're also talking about, again, you try to give grace and you try to give kids like repeated opportunities, but there also comes a point where, and I have unfortunately and fortunately come to these realizations in my career. It's like, okay, that's how you're going to behave. That's how you're going to act, whether it be academically or behaviorally. I can compartmentalize and put my blinders on. You do not exist. And I will teach to the other 25 students in the classroom, because I will not spend one more ounce of energy trying to relate to you and reach out to you and pull you into the fold. Here's your assignment. You can work on it. You'll be part of the regular class, but like, you have to move on and teach to the middle. And I know
Yeah.
that also sucks to say, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the environment and the setting that we're in some cases. It's a challenge, and there's no easy answer to it, because a lot of it is behavioral. And maybe if these kids get a little bit older, are some of them classified as oppositionally defiant? Are they?
No.
Are no? Okay. If they were, and there wasn't a particular amount of interventions put in place to make sure that this child is like, they can't just dig their heels and say, I don't want to be in that class anymore. I don't want to be in that class. I'm just not going to work. I'm just not going to work. And then it's like, well, there's too many conflicts, so we're just going to move them to another room. It's like, well, that is
Well,
completely
that's the other
again.
thing too, is that you don't really want to, prematurely have them leave, because you don't necessarily want to put that on one of your colleagues either. But maybe it would be a better, environment. I'm wondering, it's like, this is definitely, something that I hear, many, many people talk about, and the sort of general, like, lack of respect for, and I wouldn't even say, like, for someone that, like, I'm in a position of authority, but we've had this, like, really established, like, decent relationship, with the class, with the environment, and it's not just me, it's other kids, right? So they're kind of like, there's a line that crosses where, like, there's definitely some things that are happening that are not, like, okay, student to student. But I just wish I could move past, it feels like I am not doing the job that I should be doing, which, I know how that sounds, but that's, you can't help how you feel about
Yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
know.
No,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And there is no easy answer.
Right.
I think one of the things to do is maybe talking to other teachers that also teach some of these kids, and having like
Yeah. I did
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm on
And
a fact finding mission right now, because
what was the ultimate?
it's not, it's a general, it's happening in multiple places.
If it's
Yeah.
happening in multiple places, then
Yeah. We're going to
if
have
we're
a parent. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I that's always the next step with me.
Right.
I'm always like, okay, before I reach out, okay, and I reach out to a parent, I don't want uh, you know, you to call about a parent, and then a week later about a child, then a week later I call about a child, then another 2 weeks to go by, another teacher calls. Like,
Yes.
okay, are we all having an issue? I'm having an
Right.
issue with Johnny Smith, and they're not handing in their work academically. They're struggling. Is
Right.
anyone else experiencing this? Should
Right.
we meet with the parent? And some teachers, I don't want to meet, parents and involved. Like, no, that's what we have to do if
Yeah.
we're going to be a partnership. Okay. And that also then kind of, it's a CYA thing. You have tried, you have reached out to parents, you've had individual conferences, you have
Yeah.
talked individually, you've sent emails and thumbs up. You spent emails and smoke signals and everything else about what behaviors your child is exhibiting. Now we need you to step up as a parent and
Right.
help us,
Right.
because this behavior in a workplace is not acceptable.
Right. And you know what though, and I don't know if this is something that and I know that they're children, and I fully completely support the research and the frontal cortex lobes or whatever it is. I believe that. I do. When it comes to, like, I can't sit down, I have to stand up, I have to move over here. Oh, I took their pencil. But there's something that crosses the line from being impulsive and being mean,
100%.
right? But it sounds petty.
No, I don't think so.
Right? But it's something that other teachers would understand. And yet I think sometimes with administration, it sounds petty. Like, oh, come on. Oh, it's like if they're not standing on the desk screaming like F you, then get over it.
Well,
But
at the
it's
same time,
hard. It's
we're
hard.
supposed to manage our classroom. We're supposed to have kids learning. We're supposed to be engaging and
That's
do all
right.
these fun
That's right.
activities.
That's
And then
right.
when we do them, and we got this stimulus going on outside and that thing going on over here, and this student is distracted, and you have to physically say to them, okay, and like you have to physically say, no, please sit down. We're doing our work now. We're working as a group. Oh, I don't like my group. Okay, well that this is how fate has decided for you guys to work. Okay, so we don't just get to say,
Ugh,
no, I'm not
whatever
doing
we want.
this.
Right. I don't feel like it.
Okay, so and that's what happened to me in a small way, not in the way that you have it the other day. So we have when I create groups, sometimes I have students choose, sometimes I do numbers, sometimes whatever. So I have a random group generator. I put all the kids' names in. I hit a button, and it throws all their names into groups. I said, this is what we're doing. Okay, so fate may smile upon you. You may be working with your two best friends. Good for you. You know what? Also, it may not. I also reserve the right to switch anyone that I want, all the usual caveats. I said, like, because we're doing this particular activity as a group, I need whoever's name is first. You're going to be the one that's doing the writing for this activity. It's not a lot of writing. Got to put the names of your group members on there. Check off the boxes for which one. Write the description of the activities that need to be done, blah, blah, blah. So I did that. And I knew who was first and everything. And I had one student. I was like, all right, come on, who's going to do the thing? Blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And I was like, I looked at him and I was like, yes, you are. And the reason you're doing it is because I said so. And those are what the directions are. You don't just get to choose what you can and cannot do in this classroom or in life. So it's a non-negotiable for me. You've been chosen. It's your turn. Here's your paper. And I walk away. Asked and answered. First time asked. If I ask you to do something, I want it done the first time I ask it. Not when you feel like it, not when you get around to it, the first time I ask it. And after that point, there's no please and not that there isn't please and thank you, but there's no like, oh, let me do this with kid gloves. It's, I've asked you to do this already. You need to move on from this. I'm not accepting this behavior. Get it together or you'll be leaving. And it only happens once or twice a year. And when it does, everybody kind of looks, because I know we talk about laissez-faire, we make jokes, and I'm not, and I'm high strung, but let me tell you something. I have an immense amount of patience.
Yeah.
An immense amount. Okay. It takes a lot for me to blow my top. My wife calls me can of snakes because I'll bottle it all inside. And then when it releases, it's like, can of snakes. And it's like, boo, it scares you. So, and that's always been the way that I am. Like, I always have an immense amount of patience. Like, it takes a lot for me to get riled up. But once I am, then like,
watch out. Watch out.
No, it's not a watch out thing. It's like, okay, that's when my radar goes up, and I'm like, now, like, I need to be more forceful and direct. And by the book, directions are clear and concise. Okay, expectations are the same for everyone. If you don't want to follow those expectations, that's fine, but there will be consequences. So if the expectation is, we are not going to, and I realize how ridiculous this sounds. We're not going to eye roll when we're given directions. We're not going to point at our friends and we're going to laugh. And if we're going to do those things, then we're going to be removed from the classroom. And prepping the office and saying, I should not be made to feel this way in the environment that I am in. So if students are going to react like this when I'm doing a lesson that is both heartfelt and important, and this is how they want to act, then it's time for them to be removed, and I'll send them down to the office for the period.
Yeah. I feel heartily sorry for so many of the teachers who have to forge ahead day after day, period after period, class after class with these types of environments.
Yeah.
And there's like no end in sight or no help on the way, or it doesn't ever improve for them. So which is why I'm saying, okay, teachers out there, do you have anything that we have not mentioned that might any tips or tricks of the trade that you can recommend going forward for these types of students, not just for me, but and mine is, I've had way worse, let me say, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, oof, I can get over a lot of things. It's the mean that really cuts me,
Yeah.
but especially mean just, for no good reason, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
I've had some interactions with some students in the cafeteria where it's like that, where I ask them to do something, and they kind of look at me, and I get one of those "Who the hell do you think you are?" kind of looks, and
Right.
I said I pulled a girl aside the other day, and I said, "Hey, look, like you may not like you may not know that you're doing it, but even the way that you're looking at me while I'm talking to you is
Right.
very disrespectful and
Right.
off-putting." And the
Right.
other thing I have to say to them, because they also come from elementary school, and I don't teach 6th grade, and I'm in cafeteria duty for 6th grade. I have to kind of say to them, and this kind of sounded snarky. I was like, I just need you to know, like, I'm not a lunch aide. I work here. I'm a
Right.
teacher in a classroom, and you may have
Right.
me next year. So when we're given a direction, like, please pick up your garbage and throw it away, or
Right.
I watched you throw something on the floor, and then you say, no, you didn't. And I say, okay, go get a broom and a dustpan. You're going to clean it up. And they're like, well, I didn't throw it on the floor. I said, well, I have 2 eyes, and I saw you do it.
Right.
And this is not a request, it is a demand.
Right.
Go and get a broom and a dustpan and sweep up the mess that you made,
Yeah.
because that's the expectation for anyone here. If you accidentally make a mess, you
You
clean it
clean it
up,
up.
because
Right.
we are a community amongst ourselves.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
and being direct in that manner sometimes can seem to be a little bit off-putting, but I think that sometimes students need to hear that, like, hey, this is not how we act.
Right.
And I know you tried to like and I applaud you for it. I'm a human. I have blood and bones and skin and hair, and I look amazing because I apply a filter to myself there's no
Girl,
filter
this
on
is
there
all
today.
natural.
This is
This
all
is all natural.
this is all natural.
Well,
Where
thank you, Mr. Vitale, for the
that's so
advice. Thank you so much.
yes. I mean I hope it was helpful.
It wasn't.
Was it now you're gonna give me a compliment.
Uh,
Was it not
it
helpful at all?
was. Yeah,
Okay.
I just like, I want something. I want,
I
I
think
want what I want. I want it to be solved. I want it to stop.
the one
S-T-O-P.
piece of
Hard
advice,
stop.
and I heard this from a teacher who taught me in the 8th grade, and I wound up teaching with her for a little while. And her name was Diane Stack. She probably doesn't listen to the podcast at all,
You
but
should.
yeah, she should. But let me just say this: she once said to students, like, the only person that needs to love me is Mr. Stack. The only person that needs to love you is Mr. Wonko.
Oh, I thought you were going
Because
to say like yourself.
I mean, according to my daughter, you're her queen.
I was
So
just
we
going to
talked
say,
about
I
this
hope
already.
it's Sophia.
Yeah. It probably is. But no, honestly, I know that sucks to say too. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, look, you're gonna put your head on the pillow at night and know that you did what's best for your students.
Yeah.
And you might not
It's
think
not
you might
it's
not
not a
think that
me thing. It's a, how really, I guess the greater question is, and the title of this episode, how do you get students to recognize mean behavior?
Yeah.
And how do you move that forward
Yeah.
without, getting into like a petty party?
No, I agree.
I'm just curious. Is there a petty, officer out there that might might be able to direct us?
No, very true.
Yeah, but
How
it's
and
part of
there's
our
no
job.
and there's no easy answer.
No, I know.
But the other thing is that I want to mention though is I'm sure this is a class of, 15, 20 kids. You might not think that the other kids who don't get involved in this behavior are witnessing it, but I guarantee you there are kids that are witnessing this and they're going, why the hell are these kids acting like this?
Oh
Like,
no, 100%.
why would they like my and
100%.
that's
Like they can't
and
believe it. And
and
I
that
want to protect them from that behavior too, because
yeah,
then they're not getting the best from me. They're not getting
100%.
the best version of me, of myself.
Yeah.
So pretty much how do you get how do you change or get them to recognize, and maybe that isn't a teacher's job. Maybe that was the other person I reached out to today was the counselor. So maybe that is a counseling issue because it's above, what I am able to do in the regular classroom. But
Yeah.
I'm interested. You can't be interesting without being interested. Am I right?
It's true.
So
I
true.
100% agree.
Yeah.
But I think that kids recognize that and they're like, and eventually they're going to be like, why the hell are they talking to her like this? Like,
Thank you.
they're acting like jackasses. You don't want to say that about kids, but like
Right.
other kids will think
They
that
know. They
about
do.
other
Yeah,
kids.
they have the greatest view of justice for
So
sure.
regardless
Well,
of,
as always,
yeah,
regardless of,
I was going to say, regardless of whether or not students like you or not, I appreciate you. So yeah, there you
I
go.
appreciate you.
Yeah. So we will see everybody next time on the Bouncing Act podcast. And oh, by the way, the next time you hear the Bouncing Act podcast, we will be with Human Content on their network.
Content.
Our next episode, we have a special guest coming on. A little teaser for you. Our first repeat guest.
Ooh.
You'll have to wait and see who it's going to be. Check out on social media. You'll see who it's going to be. But we will be with Human Content starting our first
February
episode,
3rd.
February 4th.
February 4th.
February 4th. All right. We'll see you guys all next time on the Bouncing Act podcast.
Bye.
Bye.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.